What's up guys, the Cinematic Controller here, and today we're back with another video. This time, a video in Mass Effect 1, where we're seeing if we can beat Mass Effect 1 with only a pistol. Now, this challenge was definitely interesting to do. I definitely think it would have been more difficult if I had not allowed to use the Unity power. Rules are very simple. I'm only allowed to fight with the pistol, obviously, and I'm able to use the Unity power because it's the way you revive companions in this game, and there are certain segments I definitely wouldn't have been able to have done otherwise. And we find a group of Husks, which are basically zombies. We explore around a little bit in this area, and then we end up on a train going after Saren, who is the main bad guy of the game. And like, Geth are pretty easy to fight, even the destroyers, because basically all you have to do is aim for the head and they typically go down pretty easily, even in the early game. We find a Prothean beacon and it's broken, and so one is glowing, and one of our companions decides to like go walk up to it and see what happens. Us being the main character, we have to be the person that saves them, so we see that they're getting hit by the beacon, and so we throw them out of the way and get hit by the beacon ourselves. And then we get to see a vision of what was on the beacon. We meet Saren and Matriarch Benezia, which are the two main bad guys of this game, alongside Sovereign, but their boss fights really aren't that difficult in this game. We end up on the Citadel, which is like the hub world of the game, and we end up at the Human Ambassador's office, where he's talking with the Council about what happened to Eden Prime and about Saren. And he makes demands like a Karen does at McDonald's. We find out about Garrus, a Turian who's looking into Saren, so we go to see what he knows. And he went to a doctor's office because apparently there was some information that she had. After all this, we meet up with a Krogan named Rex, who is another one of our unlockable companions. And we recruit Rex into the group for the mission because he's after currently the same guy we're after, Fist. And he gives the cop some lips, which is kind of funny. So after that, we storm a club that's owned by this dude named Fist. And this is pretty dang easy. I've never had any issues with this segment. The main thing I had to look out for during this segment, the whole game, but really kind of became prevalent during this segment, was the heat sink. So heat sink is when your weapon overheats in Mass Effect 1. Because in Mass Effect 1 there isn't ammo clips or anything like that. It's that your guns overheat if you shoot them repeatedly too much. It's easy to kind of monitor, but sometimes you can go a little crazy, especially in the automatic weaponry. After we fight Fist, we find out about Quarian, which is basically an alien version of Sheldon Cooper. After finding out about them and finding out we need to go save them, we fight back through the club again through another round of thugs. It doesn't take too long again. We find the Quarian fighting the assassins. This was where I actually took my first death of the run. Normally I never would, but I got a little cocky since things had been going so well, and got taken out by this one assassin who has a concussion rifle. But yeah, that's where a lot of my deaths come from during this run, is just I was a little cocky about the whole ordeal. So we save this Quarian named Tali. She has information on Saren. So we take her to the embassy where she tells us about the information and about her culture, which we listen to.
Tell us what you found.
During my travels, I began hearing reports of Geth. Since they drove my people into exile, the Geth have never ventured beyond the Veil. I was curious. I tracked a patrol.
So after all that, we go to the council where we get to find out about how they're getting to see that Saren is indeed guilty. And then we get made into Space James Bond. And so we start the main run of the game where we actually get to do what we need to do. And we get the Normandy, which is the ship that we use during the entirety of the game. And they tell us about our leads that we have on Saren, which is basically we know that Geth are on Pharos Noveria, and that Dr. Liara T'Soni is on a planet in the Artemis Tau cluster. After getting everything situated, we go to Therum where Liara is, and we fight through a whole bunch of Geth. I do skip all the Mako sessions in this game, which is basically all the driving. I don't like the way the Mako handles the Mass Effect 1. It's just a personal pet peeve of mine. It just feels very weird. And since we can't shoot anything with the Mako anyways, it would have been pointless to record runs of me trying to avoid combat in a tank. And again, fighting the Geth's pretty easy. The Shock Trooper Geth are the most irritating, honestly, because they have the kinetic shields, which basically block bullets, and it's kind of irritating. Because like two of them side by side can put up like two, and it's just irritating. But after fighting through the Geth in this section, we kind of work through and get the last of the Geth, and then we get our introduction to the crawler type Geth, which there's three variations. There's Stalker, Sapper, and Ghost. The Stalker ones are able to overheat your weapons with a laser beam. The Sappers shoot a poison laser beam, which poisons you and your companion's health. And the Ghosts basically do all that, plus they also jam your map. So it's kind of irritating to fight a Ghost. But the biggest thing, other than the crawlers, was fighting the armature with just a pistol. Definitely not the way BioWare intended this game to be played, but it was doable. I did incur probably the majority of my deaths from this run at this section, because it's hard to fight an armature with just a pistol. Mainly due to the fact that it's a giant tank that, also with the pistols in this game, they don't have the best range. And sometimes when it shoots off its plasma blast, you think you're in covered where you're not going to get hit, but then you're not, and so you actually do get hit, and it's kind of irritating. At a certain point, I did find a strat where there is actually a spot where the armature can't actually hit you, but you can hit it, so I just stood there and just spammed it until it eventually went down. Well, I focused on my companions. And then once I took it down, the only things that were left were a few Geth troopers, and after I got that dealt with, it was pretty easy getting through this section. Notably, the armature, this isn't the only time you fight an armature with only a pistol. We meet Dr. Liara T'Soni, who managed to get herself trapped in an ancient death trap because she's the exact opposite of Indiana Jones.
Are you okay? What happened?
We ask her if she's okay and find out that the Geth have been going after her.
I need you to get me out of it, alright?
We just need to figure some way past this energy field.
It's a Prothean barrier current. I knew it would keep me safe from the Geth. But when I turned it on,
How did you
We found a way in by using the mining lasers nearby, which did get us in there pretty easily.
We have to get you out of here before more Geth arrive.
Yes, you're right.
Which we helped get her out due to needing her help.
Hold on, Commander.
Where one of our companions has the questioning to wonder if she's with Saren, and
These ruins are not stable. That mining laser must
unfortunately after using that mining laser we also triggered an earthquake because, yeah.
have to hurry.
So we head out of the ruins, or at least we attempt to.
Joker, get the Normandy airborne and lock in on my signal. On the double, mister.
Aye, aye, Commander.
We tell our pilot that he needs to make his way to us, and
He needs to move faster.
and then we fight the first group of mixed enemy types. So we have a bunch of Geth, pretty easy. The difficult part was the Krogan Battlemaster. Krogan Battlemasters regenerate health, obviously, but they also can use biotics, which can be a little bit difficult. And after that, we end up on Pharos, where we fight some Geth as our introduction to the planet. And we fight through them again, nothing too complicated. It's just fighting Geth. Fight them from the spaceport through the stairwell. Pretty easy. This is the second introduction because you have the free will to go wherever you want. So each of these levels is the introduction to the crawler type. This is where we see more of the sappers, and they're irritating. But after taking them both down, we take out the remaining Geth, sniper, and troopers. Pretty easy. Mainly the heatsink, it was the biggest issue for this run, because obviously there's a lot of opponents that take a lot of hits, and if you're not thinking about it, you'll just overheat your weapon and you can't shoot for a minute. So we continue fighting through more Geth. That is a consensus of this run, being with the Geth being the main enemy of the game, is that a lot of this run was I fought some Geth, and so yeah, there's a lot of Geth, a lot of shock trooper Geth. They kind of become more common than normal Geth troopers. Afterwards, we make it to the Exogeny headquarters, which is basically Space Target. And once we get there, we fight some more crawlers that wanted to make life more difficult. But once we got them taken down, we also had to end up fighting an extra Geth trooper that decided to join the party. But got another A level up, which I don't ever show any of the level ups from my gameplay, mainly due to the reason there's just no need to. But yeah, the crawler type Geth, they're difficult mainly due to the fact that you don't really know where they're going to go. And so, yeah, it can be difficult to have to fight them. But then we ambush some Geth that are praying, because space religions are definitely overrated. We find these anchors that are anchored into the wall, which is how they are hooked into the building. And we get kind of turned around through this building. It's pretty easy too, because a lot of the hallways look the same. But once you kind of get going the right way, it gets pretty easy. We fight a lot more Geth. More crawler type, because why not? But yeah, we take out the Geth though. Now we find the landing claw, and then we take out some Geth so we can then get the landing claw destroyed. That way we can actually get through and actually like get towards the end of this level, because Pharaohs is the one of the levels I feel like that Mass Effect 1 is relatively short in my opinion in comparison to 2 and 3, due to it not having as many required segments of stuff for you to do. But it's still a great game. So we then make it back, and we have to fight the colonists that have been taken over by the Thorian, which is basically a plant monster. And there are two types of enemies we fight: Thorian creepers and then the possessed colonists. The creepers are not the creepers from Minecraft, but they do, when you take them out, they have poison gas that hurts you and your companions. Not really a threat by themselves, but in giant groups or groups where there's someone with a firearm, it's kind of difficult. We fight through it relatively easily. Didn't take very long. It was the colonists that made things a little bit more difficult since they all had guns. And unfortunately with this segment, the Paragon way to go for this revolves using a gas grenade upgrade, which, since we're only allowed to fight with the pistol, meant that the Paragon option wasn't a choice. Which I am going to be playing the entire trilogy with only a pistol. At some point I'll do Mass Effect 2 and 3. But I'm going to go Paragon because Paragon ends with the best possible case scenario you can get for Mass Effect. We take another death due to me being a little bit cocky. And then we have to restart the segment basically all over again. Nothing too difficult. We make it through, fight the colonist again. Take out the last bit of Thorian creepers. To where we can then get to the last set of colonists. But after taking out the colonists, we're able to get to the crane to open the corridor to where the Thorian is, which looks like a monster from a Lovecraftian novel.
This may be problematic.
Which is supposed to be a plant. I don't think weed killers are going to work on this type of plant. Which the Thorian boss fight is not difficult, it's just irritating. Because you have to make it up a stairway, and it creates copies of an Asari Commando, which means that it shoots a gun and has biotics, which can be kind of difficult. Plus there's like hundreds of like Thorian creepers around each node that you have to take out. But once you take out a node, it weakens the Thorian, makes it a little bit easier to do some damage and take it down. Some of the Thorian creepers didn't actually load like they normally would have. We see it spawning at the first Asari clone that we get to fight, which is never fun. But after taking out the Asari clone and the Thorian creeper, we make our way through these like structure to get to the next node. After taking out all the nodes, we take out the Thorian pretty dang quickly. I did die a couple of times during the Thorian boss fight, just due to getting a little bit cocky when fighting the Asari Commando. Afterwards, we see the original Asari Commando that was being cloned, and found out that she worked for Matriarch Benezia, who was working with Saren to get something called the Cipher. Afterwards, on Noveria, we meet our introduction to the Ghost, the third type of crawler. and the one that was a little bit less irritating. But after taking out some Geth destroyers, and of course the crawlers that there were on this level, which with the help of the companions was definitely pretty dang easy. But yeah, and when I upgrade weapons and armor, it happens randomly throughout the game, so I don't really remember for sure when I upgraded a lot of pieces of armor. So when you see a different set of armor, that's when I got the upgrade. This hallway is where I get where I get rushed by 3 different Geth destroyers and then a bunch of crawlers. However, I feel like they're a little bit easier on this in this hallway segment. I take them out, take out the 3 destroyers relatively easily. Got a level up. And then we made it into the main facility where the Rachni are. We had to fight these guards that work for Matriarch Benezia. We take them out, and the only one that takes a minute is the captain, but once we get to a certain point, he's not really that much of a problem. But we fight through guards, robots, and Rachni throughout this facility, all the way until we get up to Matriarch Benezia's boss fight, which has 2 segments where... So the 2 segments are the first one where it's 3 waves of her goons, which are Asari Commandos and Geth, coming and attacking us while she's in a power bubble. Pretty easy. I don't think I took any deaths during this segment of the boss fight, just due to the fact that it is the Asari Commandos and Geth, so they're pretty easy to take out. The only thing I will say is that occasionally, and this is the thing with Mass Effect 1's combat sensor, sometimes it'll show there's an enemy on your radar even when there's not, and then sometimes when it does, and you think it may just be like, oh, well, there's not an enemy, and there ends up being an enemy. That happened a couple of times during this boss fight for me, because I had sworn I took out all the enemies, so I thought it was just a glitch on Legendary Edition with it, but it really wasn't. This segment, like I said, pretty easy side of the boss fight. The second half of the boss... In the second half of this boss fight, I did die twice, and then got it in the 3rd try, mainly due to the way that she uses her stasis power plus like a weapon, and honestly, when you think you're running away, sometimes you're not as safe as it feels. But after the 3 times of trying, I did it, and I did end up saving the Rachni, mainly due to the fact that it's the Paragon choice, and it's a choice that helps a little bit in Mass Effect 3, so again, long term. We end up on Virmire, where we meet Captain Kiri and the STG unit here that found Saren's secret base and told us that we basically landed in a hot zone where there are a whole bunch of AA guns focused on us, and that they have a Krogan cloning facility where they cured the genophage, which is where the Krogan got neutered by the Council. And we give the Katakiri the unfortunate news that we are the reinforcements that they ordered. And so then he gets a little bit upset that they didn't send a fleet. Then we have to talk down Rex because, like, he doesn't want to destroy the cure for the genophage, but we have to because it's against Saren. We convince him. He sort of listens to us. He doesn't like it, but he trusts us enough to listen to our call. And so, yeah. Which causes Shepard for the one time in the whole game to break the only pistols run when he pulls out a shotgun. Granted, if I was up against a giant lizard man, I would also probably pull out a shotgun. But, yeah. After this, we give Ashley off to Katakirhi to lead some of his forces, while we infiltrate as a shadow team into the facility. This segment I only died once, and it was because I wasn't paying attention to the rocket drones and got hit by a Geth rocket drone. This facility is pretty dang easy, except for obviously the rocket drones I wasn't paying attention to. We meet Sovereign, which is an overglorified Apple AI that thinks it's better than everybody else.
Cycle? What's a cycle?
It talks about the cycle.
itself 4 times than you can fathom. Organic civilizations rise, evolve, advance, and at the apex of their glory, they are extinguished. The Protheans were not the first. They did not create the Citadel. They did not forge the mass relays. They merely found them.
But we do tell Sovereign that we're gonna beat him. Then we fight through the facility to finish our mission. Fight a whole bunch of Krogan warriors, Geth crawlers, and Geth shock troopers. We make it through pretty easily, honestly. These Geth rocket drones kind of caught me by surprise, but unlike last time, I didn't let them take me out. And then we go over to where the AA gun controls are. I accidentally shoot the wrong thing. Turn off the thing. We find out there's some Geth in an elevator. We die during a fight against some Geth ghosts and stuff. We try it again. And we succeed a lot better in our second attempt, where we take them out. But there was a lot here because there was Krogan warrior, 2 Geth ghosts, and I think there was a couple Krogan warriors. But still, a lot of opponents, and with the Geth ghosts, they're pretty irritating because they're a fusion of the other 2 crawler type Geth. But yeah, after taking out all of the enemies, we do make it to the elevator where we're able to make one of the big choices of the game of which campaign to save. But taking out the last few Geth after the Krogan was pretty easy. But then we get to the Saren boss fight, the first one at least. This boss fight's not that difficult, and I've never really had any huge issues with it. So it was a pretty easy boss fight. You just get his health to halfway, it ends the boss fight. The only thing that makes it a little bit difficult is all the Geth, but since there's your companions plus other people firing at the Geth, it makes it a little bit easier. After everything that happens here after we get through the Saren boss fight, we then go back to the council, and they basically tell us that they won't let us go after him towards Ilos, where we know Saren's going. And so we get to deal with that. And they basically tell us that we're not suited to go after Saren anymore. And they said that basically they're going to sit and wait because they don't believe us about the Reapers, which they should, because they're crazy robot people. So then they ground us, locking the Normandy, and turning their backs on us when they need us. Captain Anderson volunteers to try and help us get the Normandy running. That way we can go after Saren, because he doesn't want us giving up and wants us to keep going after Saren, because he knows that Shepard's not crazy, where the council apparently thinks he's insane. And so he offers 2 ways to help, one of which is super dangerous, the other which gives probably one of the most satisfying cutscenes in the entirety of Mass Effect 1, where Captain Anderson barges into Udina's office and delivers the epic punch of the century against Udina. Then we're on Ilos. Ilos is definitely a lot easier than other set planets. And this is where we get to fight 2 more armatures on foot with a pistol. And I feel like this was a lot easier than the first armature boss fight. I don't know if maybe it's just the improved gear, or maybe like something was turned down in difficulty at some point. But it felt pretty dang easy to take out 2 Geth armatures at this point. But I also did have like, I'm pretty sure it's like the second best pistol you can get in the game at this point. Then we get to the facility to restore power to the main door, where we get to fight a whole bunch of Geth destroyers alongside a Geth Prime. This segment, surprisingly enough, I had expected a death here, because at a certain point all of my companions get taken out, and my health gets really low, and I'm not able to use the Unity power for a minute. So I was honestly pretty convinced that this was going to be a loss, but somehow I managed to survive this run without having to redo the segment again. Used the Unity power to revive my companions. We were able to take out all the Geth, and then we took out the Eden Prime, the Geth Prime, which is pretty easy to take out, honestly. You just aim for the head, it goes down. Accidentally get blown up by a grenade. Then we meet Vigil, which is basically a Prothean AI that translated the Prothean language into English. I guess Google Translate got better in 3,000 years, because Google Translate barely works nowadays, so who knows.
I have been monitoring your communications since you arrived at this facility. I have
But Vigil tells us that basically the Protheans were blindsided by the Reapers, because all their technology was based off of Reaper tech, and so then we get shot through the conduit, which is a mini mass relay that goes straight into the Citadel, and we shoot the Mako up like it's a projectile and a railgun. I don't know how people never noticed, like the Citadel had people on it for thousands of years, and how did people never notice the mass relay? Like, yeah, it may have been hidden, but they should have known at some point that it was there. But then we get mass relayed and take out 2 Geth with the Mako. And then we go through the segment of climbing basically up the side of the Citadel. I do die a couple of times during these segments. One time because I'm an idiot that forgets which way to go, and so I go towards like all these turrets. Another time I get outdone by a bunch of Krogan, because there's like 3 Krogan warriors and a battle master that overwhelm me. But after pulling it all together, I was able to get through this pretty easily and take out the Geth turret, take out the trooper, got down this way, and go into this hallway where I experienced the death with the Krogan. And yeah, I really don't like how the Krogan's regeneration works in this game. It's just kind of irritating, which I know it's the same way in Mass Effect 2. It just, I don't know. I feel like they throw so many Krogan at you in this game that the regeneration is just kind of crazy. We take out a Krogan warlord. We take out a couple of Krogan warlords. And then after this, we get to the last segment of the game where we go the ramp up to the access hatch, which leads us basically right outside of the council chambers, where we then fight a whole bunch of Geth. Wasn't difficult, didn't take a lot of time. Just a lot of Geth shock troopers and stuff. But yeah, I would definitely say that this was probably one of the more interesting Geth fights, because you're gonna get kind of stuck in the middle of the firefight. Then we have a philosophical debate with Saren about how we can fight the Reapers if we're willing to work together. And he says that he doesn't believe that it's possible to beat the Reapers, but He believes it's too late for him. And he decided to get implants because he wanted to perform better, which is the same thing that professional athletes do with steroids. He says it's too late for him. We heroically say that he can still redeem himself, but he doesn't agree with this, and he tells us thank you. Then we get to fight Saren again, but this time he's possessed by Sovereign, which means that he has a whole bunch of different powers, and basically he becomes another crawler boss fight. Only difference is he has shields that regenerate, so his boss fight is pretty similar to his one on Vermeer. You work his health down to halfway. Then we get a cutscene of the fleet attacking Sovereign outside of the Citadel. And then we get to worry about, like, taking down, Saren. I feel like this boss fight was a little bit easier than the one on Vermeer, but I don't know. Again, it could be gear, but I'm pretty sure I had most of the same gear at this point in time, so it wouldn't have been too much better than the gear that I have at the end game. He does have Getha come in and help him, but honestly, barely an inconvenience. They more just waste time because you basically have to fight them before you can really get into attacking him. We fight Saren. His shields are the thing that I kind of dislike. Because the cutscene, we take on Saren without having to worry about any more interruptions from cutscenes. We fight all these Geth. Which I feel like this is what BioWare was planning to do with the Marauder class from Mass Effect 3, potentially, because he looks like what a Marauder looks like in Mass Effect 3, sorta. But not completely, so I'm wondering if this was like what they were planning previously. But the Crawler class thing, I don't really like it. Again, don't really have a way of knowing where he's going to go. Unity and the meta gel did come in handy though. And we continue fighting through just because we kind of got it. But we did choose to save the council, obviously, which is the best case scenario. We get his health pretty dang low. But obviously with the regenerating shields, it takes a second to actually take his health down. Because you have to go through the shields, and then you finally get this help. The heatsink again was a little bit of a problem during this fight, which I'm kind of glad that after Mass Effect 1 BioWare switched to an ammo clip system, because I don't like the heatsink. I think the future games would have suffered from having heatsink. We defeat Saren, the council thanks us, and then we get to pick the human representative for the council, and we choose Anderson because he was a real one, unlike Udina, who decided to kind of just abandon us in the last moment. And so the council shows sympathy that people died, and so with that, that is the end of the video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. It did take a minute for me to get the video recorded and everything to work. If y'all did enjoy it, hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this. A Mass Effect 2 video will definitely be in the works. But with all that said, see y'all in the next video. Peace out, squad.